Hey guys, welcome to the Search Course, as we are going to help you to get set free from porn. Because friends, it's time that we stop searching and we start living.
How did I get into the porn industry? Why did I say yes?
Porn was destroying my life. I was battling with drug addiction and suicidal thoughts on a daily basis.
You are going to start to break the shame off of your life.
We are here to help people stop searching and to start living and walking in purity and freedom.
So I pray as you dive into these lessons that God is going to minister and speak to you in a mighty way.
I know that if you will apply these teachings to your life, you will get set free from porn so that you can stop searching and you can start living.
So I have spoken to people that have been in the porn industry before, and one thing that they pointed to me, which I just think that if people know this, I don't see how any person in good conscience could consume porn, is how high the suicide rates are for women in the industry.
Yeah.
And how drugged a lot of these women are to give themselves the confidence to be able to do what they are doing.
Yeah.
And how drugged they are after they do these scenes to be able to try to numb the pain of realizing what they have just done or what they have contributed to. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in 2018, there was like back-to-back-to-back suicides. I mean, it was every month. I think it was like 5 or 6 months in a row, somebody was dying. I have probably 15 friends that have died to either suicide or drug overdose. I just lost somebody that I was very close to last year. There's a very high death rate in the porn industry. And as far as drugs, I mean, I was one of those drug addicts. I had left the industry at one point at my 3.5-year mark because I was withdrawing from heroin.
Wow.
And that's when I ended up meeting a pimp, and he got me back into the industry for another 3.
So talk about when you became a drug addict. So you're in the industry for 3 years. You left because of your addiction.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first time that you did heroin, and what gave you that impulse?
Okay, so, well, heroin, I mean, there were other drugs that led up to that. So I was on set. I was new in the entertainment or in the adult industry. And I'm 105 pounds, 5'1". I'm not overweight. But a director tells me, you're fat, you need to lose weight. And in high school, although I'd never been a pot smoker, I did try Coke a few times. And so I knew that it would make me not eat. So I asked one of the models, hey, I mean, apparently I'm fat and I need to lose weight. Is there, do you have access to any cocaine? And she was very suspicious as to why I was asking her. I'm like, no, I really do just want to buy cocaine. And so she ended up getting me some. And then from there, I just kind of got hooked and I started using it every day. And then I started dating a guy that introduced me to then Norcos, which are like Vicodin, they're for pain medication. From there, it went to Oxycontins. And then from Oxycontin, there was a girl that I was buying Oxycontins from that said, have you ever chased the dragon? And I'm like, what does that mean? And I thought she was talking about something in porn. And she's like, come over and I'll show you. So I hung out with her and she pulled out this piece of foil, put a piece of black tar with it was like a plastic, where you put your tampons in?
Yeah.
It was like a plastic from that.
Applicator.
Mm-hmm, an applicator, thank you. And she just started smoking heroin in front of me, and she's like, it's better than Oxy. So I tried it and used that for many months before I decided that, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I had called my grandma and told her, hey, if you don't come get me, I honestly think I'm going to commit suicide because I can't take this life anymore.
Wow. Wow. So you became a heroin abuser. Started with Oxycontin, cocaine, and then it leads to something, needing something stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, were you taking these drugs before scenes, after scenes, between scenes?
I lived on drugs because what happens when you become addicted is your body goes through intense withdrawals. So if you don't feed it what it needs, you're going to lose control of your bowels, your legs, everything's going to hurt. You're going to be in intense pain, like far worse than the flu. Like you just feel awful. So I mean, I was on them every day. When I was down to like my last 10 to 15 pills, I'm like, I need to call the dealer because if they don't have them, I need to figure it out. Like, I mean, it was a vicious cycle of like, I'd get paid from porn, but then I'd have to go and chase the drug dealer. Like my net worth was said to be like, I don't know, $3.4 million by the time I left the business. I left that industry with my last paycheck, $1,500. That was it.
You're making money and then you're spending the money to get drugs.
Yeah.
Wow. And I only know one person personally that's ever been addicted to heroin, what I've known from way back, from middle school. And I remember seeing her as she got clean. And when she described to me in detail what the withdrawals were like to get off of heroin, she just said it was like dying.
Yeah.
That is
absolutely.
Just, it's like dying. Every piece of your body is just, she was, in the hospital, and she said you can't even describe that sort of pain.
It's awful.
And yet you were willing to go through that pain. You call your grandmother and you say, come get me. And did she come get you?
She did. She drove up to Los Angeles, moved me in with her into her home in San Diego. And I mean, I did get help from a doctor. I went to a doctor, got on what was called Suboxone to kind of help alleviate the withdrawal a little bit, but it was still pretty bad.
Okay. Why didn't you call your mother or your father?
You know what? I, at that time, had a very, very hindered relationship with my mom. She and I have a great relationship now, but she was the cause of a lot of the voids that I had in life,
Okay. Okay, so your grandmother comes to the rescue. And how long did you spend with her?
I was with her for maybe 3 to 5 months before I met a guy that I started dating. He was in a motorcycle gang. I had moved in with him. He got stabbed to death in front of me. And then from there, I had nowhere to live. And the pimp, which was his friend, comes and kind of is like, oh, well, I'll put you in a hotel for a few days. And he's giving me meth. And, because at this point I started using crystal meth.
And did you get clean while you were with your grandmother?
I did.
It sort of...
Yeah, but it was a very short stint of being clean. Like it didn't last long, obviously.
So you fell right back in. You watch your ex-boyfriend get stabbed to death. His friend, he's the pimp, says, hey, I'll take care of you. You need some more place to stay. And now he's supplying you with drugs, methamphetamine.
Yes.
Totally different drug from heroin.
Totally different, yeah. This one gets you wired. So I start hearing voices. So he ends up taking me to a mental institution. I get clean there for a few days, and then he brings me to his apartment. He was actually a believer, a backslidden believer. So he introduces me to the Bible and takes me and gets me baptized.
This is the same person that gave you the meth, and he is a pimp.
Yes.
But he's also a believer. And after you go into a mental institution, he says, actually, by the way, I forgot to mention that aside from being a pimp and aside from supplying you with drugs, I also am a believer.
Yeah, because he was a meth addict at one point and found God, and that's how God healed him. But then he ended up going into this line of work, if you want to call it that.
I'm not sure how God healed him, but he's also supplying
you're right.
methamphetamine. He sounds like a conflicted Christian.
Very much so.
Which
Very
is,
much so.
That's not to make fun of him. It's just to point to the fact
no, it's true.
He clearly was still struggling himself. But
so after I get
he tells you about Christ.
Yeah. So after I get clean and I kind of have like just almost like a new attitude because I'm reading the Bible every day, but I don't really understand it. He starts to explain to me that, Jesus loves prostitutes because of Mary Magdalene and very twisting the scriptures. And then from there, he's like, I just think it's time. I think that it's time for you to get back into the porn industry. And, and I'm just like I knew that he was a pimp, but because men were my weakness and I had grown attracted to him at that point. And I thought like, oh no, like he even gave me a ring, proposed to me, all of this. So I'm thinking like, I thought we were in love. Like I was very naive. Like, why would you put me back into, I don't know. I let him take advantage of me. I didn't know. I was vulnerable at that time in my life.
And how old were you at this time?
21.
So young.
Yeah.
So young.
Yep.
All of this has happened. You've seen a lot of life up until this point.
Absolutely.
And now you think you're in love, and he says, you know, Jesus loved prostitutes. And I think it's time for you to go back to the porn industry.
Exactly.
And
I go back.
You went back.
I told him, I said, you know, me thinking that we're in love, like, hey, if I go back to the industry, we're not going to last. And he's like, oh yeah, we're going to be together forever. So 3 years later, you know, I had an encounter. I actually had an encounter with God, and I just felt like, you know what, I need to leave this guy. And so he'd been taking all my money for 3 years, but I prepared myself. I stashed money from an overnight escorting gig that I did I think it was in Miami. And he found out about the money that I stashed, took it. I was crazy, called 911, threatened to turn him in, and he gave me the money, and I ended up getting away from him. And that time, it was actually with the help of my mom.
Really? So did you call her in
I did.
A desperate moment?
In a desperate moment, yeah.
And what did you say to her?
I told her, Mom, I need to get away from this guy. I said, he's no good for me. I'm sure you know that. And I really need your help.
Wow. And what did she do?
She showed up. She lived about 15 minutes away, and she was there for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were able to get that money back from him?
Yes.
Okay.
So that I could get my own apartment and a car at that point. And
it must have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
He was taking all of it.
Well, I mean, he took all my money for 3 years, yeah. So I think I want to say I stashed around $10,000. I got a little $5,000 car from Craigslist and was able to get an apartment. Then I had no money, and I was going to go back to what I knew. So I went and filmed my last porn scene before I had yet another God encounter.
Because of a virus that attacked and hurt the world, we put much emphasis on washing our hands. But I'm here to tell you that there's a spiritual virus, and it is attacking marriages, families, and young adults, and it's called impurities. In 2020, the world asked us to wash our hands, but God is also calling us to have clean hearts.
The word purity means freedom from contamination. And in this book, we address things that contaminate our heart, such as lust, unforgiveness, bitterness, insecurities, idolatry, pornography, amongst other contaminations, and how to get free from them.
And that's exactly why we wrote this book, A Call to Purity, because God is calling us to be pure.
You see, when you walk in purity, you walk in freedom. And friends, this book is just not a book. It's a mandate from God, and God is calling us to rise up and walk in purity.